Welcome to the Board Game Network. This is James. I'm going to be explaining how to play this game called Mare Nostrum Empires. It plays 14 years and up. It plays in about 90 minutes, 3 to 5 players. Your map here has the Mediterranean basin on it, and you've got provinces and seas. So you've got territory on land, those are your provinces, and then you've got sea territories. You've got commodities out here. You have coins, resources. You have caravans, which are your camels. You have markets, which are your tents. You have cities, which are these ones, and there's 3 different kinds. There's regular cities. There are capital cities, which have a black border around them, and you have legendary cities, which are a red border around them. 3 different kinds of cities. And then you have temples, which are these ones here. Okay. Your goal is to expand your empire, and you do that by gaining control of new provinces. You develop resources. You invade other players' provinces to occupy and control their resources and buildings also. You've got commodities and you've got coins, and you use those to get new caravans and markets, cities, temples, armies, wonders, and heroes from over here. You've got wonders and heroes. And you can win one of 4 ways. You can win via prestige, building the pyramids. You can win via fame. So you build, you get 5 heroes and wonders. You can do it by conquest. So you get control of 4 capital cities. So every player has their own capital. So you get 4 capital cities and or legendary cities, and the board only has 3 legendary cities on the whole board. Or you can do it via leadership, and you do that by having control of all 3 leadership tracks here. Now I've got this set up for 3 players. If you set it up for 4 players, you take you'll see here that the map goes out to here. So 4 players, you just take the skinny board and you cover up this little piece. If you got 5 players, you don't put the boards here at all, and you play with all 5. And you don't cover any part of the board. So with this stuff covered up, you don't use any part of that board. This game is really nice on it's perfect on writing. The rules are written well. You've got great references. This is your screen for each player. You'll notice here you've got a banner here. That's a control marker. So this is the capital for the red player. Here's the capital for the green player. Here's the capital for the black player. So in a 3-player game, you have to play with those colors, and so you get everything that's black. If you're playing here, you get everything that's red. You get everything that is green. So it shows you where to start your setup. So you put caravans out based on what your screen shows you. Every screen is different. So this one starts with 4 caravans and a market. It's got a fortress. It's got a legion here. And it's got 2 control markers in addition to the control marker printed on the board. The control marker that has it's printed on the board is your capital, and that cannot change hands. You get some commodities over here, and so you're going to take those, and everybody gets 9 commodities total to start with. And then you're going to put your leadership markers or your markers over here and declare leadership for whoever's in the lead on those tracks. And this is based on the pieces out here. So you'll notice this one shows caravans and markets. So if you counted 2, 4, 6, 7, black is starting with 7, so his marker is on the 7 space. Temples and cities is the second one, so you count your temples and your cities, and that's why black has 1. And then this is essentially all your plastic pieces. So your triremes, which are your boats, your fortress, and your legions, and you add those up, and black starts with 2 of those. So that's where he starts. Same thing with green and red. So it shows you where you're starting, and that essentially is phase one of the first turn of the game. So you start, this screen shows you what you got for phase one. You have a nice little reference here. This shows you all of the heroes that are in the game. It tells you what they do. Every hero does something unique. So each player that starts doesn't have all the same abilities. They have a unique ability each that they get to use. And then these ones, when you purchase these ones, you get some other abilities. So these are your heroes or your wonders. Wonders are listed down here. So phase one is collecting resources. Collecting resources works like this. If you have a city or a capital city, you get 1 coin. Now if you have a temple in the same province as your city or your capital city, you actually get an extra coin. So that's why black got 1 coin to start with right here, because they have a capital city. You get 1 commodity per caravan, and the commodity that you get is printed next to the caravan. So this caravan produces sheep, this one produces flowers, this one produces figs, this one produces sheep. So you get 1 commodity, you take the corresponding commodity for every caravan that you have, and then if you have a market in the space, that actually doubles the amount that the caravan is producing. So because there's a market here, this one actually gets 2 sheep, this one gets 2 flowers. You get 1 coin and a legendary commodity for each legendary city. Remember, there's only 3 of those. Here's 1 here, here's 1 here. So if you get control of the legendary city, then you get a coin and a legendary commodity. And what is a legendary commodity? A legendary commodity is just like a normal commodity. It has a different border printed around it, but it has the same exact picture, a different border, and they're face down. So when you get a legendary commodity, you're drawing a random one. So you don't know what it is. It counts just like a normal commodity. So when you're making sets of things, you have to have different commodities. You don't make a set. You can't have 2 sheep in the same set. You have to have unique commodities to make your setup, to buy. And so a legendary commodity counts just like a normal commodity. And when you use it and discard it, you don't get, it doesn't come back into play until all legendary commodities have been used, and then you'll flip those over and mix them back up to use them again. So that's phase 1 of the first round. Phase 2 is trading resources, and the trade leader decides which exchange marker to use. There are 3 exchange markers. They have 2 different values. They've got a value on one side, a value on the other side. So this one's got 5 and 0, 2 and 1, 4 and 3, and you have to use all 3 of these before you get to reset. So whoever's the trade leader, he's going to say, well, let's use this one. So that we're going to trade 2 commodities this turn, and then on turn 2 he picks a different one, on turn 3 he picks a different one, and then he gets those back and can start over. Now if the trade leader changes hands, then that clears the exchange markers off and they get to start completely over. So trade resources is, let's say you do 2, so you're going to look through your resources that you have, and you're going to pick 2 of them to trade with other people. Now since I said you need different commodities to make up your sets, you're going to want to try to get rid of duplicates is what you're going to do. So I've got 3 sheep over here as the black player, so I'm going to flip those upside down. Everybody flips them upside down until everybody's ready. Once they're ready, you flip them face up. And then the trade leader goes first, and he picks somebody else's commodity he takes. And so he's going to take somebody else's that they're offering. He's going to flip it face down in front of him. And then whoever he took from gets to take, and then they take and take. And the only limitation is you can't take from the same player 2 times in a row. So you need to remember who you took from last time. And if you ever get to a point where you have to take from the same leader or the same person that you just took from last turn, then the trading is over. And if everybody didn't get the same amount, then the trade leader would have one extra more than somebody else. What he has to do is he has to give the player who has one less, he has to give them one of his, and it can be any of the ones he took, it can be any behind the screen. He just takes one and gives it to the other player, so everybody gets the same amount. And if somebody didn't have all of their commodities taken, they just take them back and put them back behind their screen. So that's the end of the second phase, trading resources. Then you go to the third phase, which is building. And the cultural leader determines the order for building. And so he's going to say, well, Mary, you go first, and then Fred, and then I'll go, or he can go first. So it gives him an advantage. If he wants to build first, then he gets to. If he wants to build later and see what other people do, then he can wait. Building works like this. You have the cost printed here on your reference. There's a bunch of things that cost 3, a few things that cost 6, and then there's 7 through 10. So the 3, they have to be 3 different commodities, so I can't use 2 sheep in my set of 3, but I could use a sheep and a fig and a flower, and I could buy something with a set of 3. I cannot mix coins in. Coins are unique and different. You either spend 3 coins or you spend 3 different commodities for something that costs 3. And if you look at your chart here, that could be your control, and that's your banner here. And what that does is it allows you to start moving into a territory or a province that you do not already control. You can't put pieces in there until you control that province. And you have to put it into an adjacent or an adjoining space to one you already have control on at the beginning of the turn. So I have these 3 right now, and so I could put control there, I could put control there, I could put control there. It has to be adjacent to one of the land ones. Or what an adjoining one is if I have a trireme, a boat out here, then that would allow me to put control, say, right here, because that makes this one adjoining to another one that I have control over. If I have a boat and another boat, let's put a boat over here or something, then I could put control. Let's say I put one there. Get these dice out of the way. So that allows me to put control over on this space, Asia, over here, because I've got a boat here and a boat here. Essentially, that's my supply line. You cannot put a control marker in a space that has opponent's pieces in it, or an opponent control has an opponent control marker in it. You can build units, which are legions or fortresses. So here's your fortress, here's your legion. So a legion essentially is your warrior. A fortress is a protector. It helps you in battle when you're defending. Your limitations there on putting those plastic pieces out are you cannot put them in a province that is at war. And a province is at war if there's more than one player in the same province. You must control the province, so it must have your control marker. And you're limited to 1 fortress per province. You also can put triremes out, and the limitation there is they have to be adjacent to a province that you have control over. And you can, it's okay to put it down in a sea space that has another trireme from another player. Buildings are cities, temples, caravans, markets. Your limitation there is you can only put down what is printed as an icon on the board. So Phasnia, it has a caravan and a market there printed. So you can only put 1 caravan there. You can put 1 market there. You cannot put a city marker down. You can put any of your plastic pieces. That's not a limitation on that. Your buildings are what are limited by the printed icons on the board. Or you can build a hero or a wonder by taking one of the face-up ones here. There's 5 face-up, and it suggests you do this when you're new at playing the game, but once you get experienced, you actually play with all of them face-up, so they're all available at the beginning of the game. Each of them, again, have a special ability, so if you buy one of those, you add it to your board down here, and then you get that whatever that special ability is for that hero or wonder. The first one costs 7. The second one costs 8, the third one costs 9, and the fourth one costs 10. And remember, that is a victory conditions is to have 5 of those. And everybody starts with 1, and the one you start with is printed on your board. And it also has your control banner printed on the piece. Your 4th phase, which is move and battle, the military leader actually gets to decide the order that people go in. So he can go first, or he can go last, or whatever. He says, you know, Mary, you go first, and Bill, then you go. And the order that happens is your trireme moves first. You have to go in this order. Your boats are going to move, and they can go to an adjacent space. And then if they're in a space with an opponent's trireme also, they can battle, but it's optional. Don't have to. The way battles work is the sea battles use blue dice, and the blue dice actually show here on your reference card that they have a 2, 2 3s, 2 4s, and a 5. So they're not normal 6-siders. The brown dice, which are your land battle dice, they have 2 3s, 2 4s, a 5, and a 6. So they're skewed a little bit higher than the blue dice. So you take a die for every boat you have in the province that's going to battle. You roll those dice, you add them up, you divide by 5, and that's how many casualties that the opponent takes. He does the same thing. You do it simultaneously. So he rolls, adds up, divides by 5. That's how many casualties you take. The land battle happens the same, except for you're using brown dice instead of blue dice. You roll the dice, you add them up, you divide by 5. That's how many casualties the opponent takes. He rolls to see how many you take. Simultaneous rolling. Your fortress, it can be taken as a casualty, and your fortress actually modifies your die. It gives you 5, an additional 5 to your total die roll. So it essentially gives you 1 extra casualty, and it reduces your casualties by 1. So if you took 3 casualties, you'd only take 2 casualties if the battle's happening where you have a fortress. Once this is done, if there's only 1 player left in the province, and it's the conqueror that's left there, he has some choices to make. And the choices he can do is he can pillage, and what he does is he destroys a building. So that's your city, your caravan, your temple, or your market. And then you place your legion on the top of that space. So if I'm conquering over here, and I conquer this space, and I put my legion on top of this caravan, I destroy the caravan, I discard the piece, I set on the caravan space, and I actually get that commodity. I get 1 of it. So if it's a city, I get a coin. If it's a caravan, I get the corresponding commodity. If it's a temple or market, I don't get anything. If it's a legendary city, I get a coin or a legendary commodity of my choice. You don't get to pick which one, but you get to choose between a coin or a legendary commodity. Your second choice of things to do besides pillage is you can occupy buildings. So you can just not destroy them, but you put your piece on top of them. And then when it goes back to phase 1, where you collect resources, then you're going to collect the resource for the pieces that you have your legions on top of. So the purpose of that is if you think you're going to hold it for more than 1 round. If you think your opponent's going to come back in and battle you and take it back from you, that's when you want to probably pillage so that he doesn't have as much left when he comes back. If you think you're going to hold it for several rounds, you probably want to either occupy the buildings, or you can occupy the provincial control. So you put your piece on the control marker itself, and then if you hold that until the start of the next phase 4, so the start of the next move and battle phase, then it becomes your province. You take their control marker off, you put your control marker down, and when that happens, then on phase 1, the collecting resources, everything, all the temples and or the caravans and the market, that all produces for you now. You adjust the leader track, so if the move and battle phase made some differences, then you want to make sure you adjust both players or on the leader tracks. If the province becomes at war once you're occupying a space and it becomes at war again, somebody has come back into it, then you lose control of any buildings and control markers that you have there that you're getting resources from. If you're still the only player in future rounds, then you do things over again. So you can pillage again, you can occupy buildings again, or you can occupy a control marker. You won't occupy it again, because if you occupy it the first time and then you still hold it, then it becomes yours. But let's say you occupied a caravan, and then the next round you're still in there, you could then occupy the control marker. So you can change what you've done if you're the sole player, if you're the only player in that province. So in phase 5, you claim leadership. So whoever's in the lead on these gets to put his marker up there, and he is now the leader on that track. So if that changes hands, then they then get to decide who does things in what order. And if there's a tie, then whoever the previous leader was gets to decide who the new leader is, or if he's part of the tie, then he can choose himself. And then phase 6 is just checking for victory conditions. So you look and see, did somebody build the pyramids? If they did, then they're the winner. And that would happen immediately once somebody builds the pyramids on the build phase. If you have 5 heroes or wonders, and that happens at the end of phase 3 on the build phase. So it's possible to have more than one player that has built heroes or wonders. And then if there's a tie, the cultural leader then wins if he's part of the tie. Otherwise, it just remains a tie. If you have 4 capitals in your control and or legendary cities. So with the 3-player game, there's only 3 capitals out, and then there's 2 legendary cities, so you'd have to control 4 of those in a 3-player game. 4 of those 5 possible. Or if you're the leader on all 3 tracks. So that's your 4 possible choices, and it lists those right here on your reference card, what the 4 choices are. Okay. Well, this would appeal to those players who like Scythe or the Old Avalon Hill Civilization, or it would even appeal to those who play Axis and Allies. This is not strictly a war game, just like Civilization was not strictly a war game. It's more broad than that, but I think it appeals to that same kind of logic on how to win the game. Make sure you tune into all of our videos here at the Board Game Network, and be sure to subscribe to keep up to date on the latest in board games and card games here at the Board Game Network.